How can you protect your feelings and become mentally stronger? Life can be challenging and obstacles are part of the journey. However, the key to persevering, protecting your emotions, and strengthening your spirit lies not in ignoring suffering, but in dealing with it wisely. In this video, I share with you lessons from Stoicism that will help you control your reactions and strengthen your mind. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, is a great example of this. Even in the face of difficulty, he managed to maintain his inner peace and transform pain into strength. If you are ready to break free from control of your emotions, stay with me. I will give you a powerful guide that will support you on your journey. Let's get started. First lesson: the mastery and wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is remembered not only as a great emperor, but also as a man who faced deep pain and yet remained steadfast. His life was not easy, quite the opposite. He experienced unimaginable losses, including the deaths of his children, and saw his empire ravaged by wars and plagues. Despite the many tragedies around him, he refused to sink into despair. Imagine how difficult it is to run a vast empire and shoulder the responsibility for thousands of lives, while your own personal tragedies threaten to destroy you from within. The pain, loss, and challenges he faced could have easily brought him down. He could have given in to the anger, the sadness, or the frustration, but he chose something else. He chose to face all of this with his head held high and his heart calm. Marcus Aurelius understood something that is fundamental to all of us. What matters is not what life gives us, but what we do with it. Over the course of his life, he approached pain differently than many of us. Instead of running from it or trying to ignore it, he allowed himself to experience it, but with control. He wrote Meditations, a personal diary in which he reflected day after day on his feelings, his questions, and his efforts to get back on his feet. He wasn't perfect, quite the opposite. He was broken like any of us. But there was one difference. He never let his circumstances define who he was. He knew that even when the pain seemed unbearable, true strength lies not in running from it, but in how we choose to live with it. Marcus Aurelius's death was not the end of a battle, but the conclusion of a cycle in which he learned a lot about life and human nature itself. He wasn't a hero because he never felt pain. On the contrary, he was a hero because he learned to live with it and find peace in the midst of pain. His courage did not lie in avoiding life's challenges, but in meeting them with calmness and self-knowledge. When you are going through difficult times, when life seems relentless and the difficulties seem endless, remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. He teaches us that true strength comes not from overcoming what is around us, but from how we manage to stand firm when the world seems to be falling apart. If he could carry on despite all the tragedies he faced, then you can too. Second lesson: control your mind. Marcus Aurelius teaches us something profound. True control lies not in the things that happen around us, but in the way we respond to them. We often believe that it is the circumstances that influence us, that we are victims of what happens to us. But in reality, it is not the events themselves that cause us suffering, but the way we allow them to affect us. When we allow ourselves to be consumed by frustrations and fears, we become prisoners of our emotions. This puts us in a vicious circle where every little thing seems to affect us disproportionately. Marcus Aurelius shows us that this emotional prison does not have to be our reality. He believes that we can and must overcome this condition by cultivating self-knowledge and becoming masters of our own minds. According to Marcus Aurelius, the difficulties that arise in our lives are not obstacles to be feared, but opportunities disguised as challenges to strengthen our souls. He advises us to face adversity with calm and to practice the virtue of patience at all times, even in small everyday situations. He says, when something insignificant happens, we should not let ourselves be shaken, just as we should not let a lack of energy ruin our day. This means that even in the face of a small unpleasant situation, such as a long queue or an unexpected delay, we can decide not to lose our inner peace. These moments are the daily test of our ability to remain calm. The real price of inner peace is our ability to react calmly to the unexpected, without losing the balance between. In his opinion, true freedom lies in the gap between the stimulus and our reaction. This gap is where our freedom of choice lies and where our true strength manifests itself. Let's imagine a simple but very common situation. You are standing in a long line and need to get somewhere quickly. Suddenly, the person in front of you is having problems with their pay, and you become impatient. The urge to complain is immediate, but if you stop and think for a moment, you will realize that the other person's mistake and the delay are beyond your control. What you can control is your reaction. You can decide whether to let the frustration overwhelm you or to take a deep breath, stay calm, and wait. This does not mean that you remain passive in the face of difficulties, but rather that you act wisely. This principle of self-control applies not just to moments of momentary frustration, but to our entire lives. It determines our way of dealing with difficulties of any kind. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that although we cannot avoid the initial feelings, we are always responsible for how we react. For him, true responsibility lies not in avoiding emotions, but in responding to them wisely and consciously. People who understand this concept know that their decisions are not determined by what is happening around them, but by the inner values they want to follow. Even in difficult times, they remain in control of their actions and do not let their emotions overwhelm them. Marcus Aurelius was clear when he said, "What happens to you is unimportant. What matters is how you react." When we are able to control our reactions, we begin to live according to our highest values. This maintains our inner peace and helps us focus our energy on what is really important. But self-control doesn't happen overnight. It is a habit, a constant practice. Just as the body needs physical exercise to stay strong, the mind also needs exercise to stay strong and healthy. Start with small challenges. Practice patience in queues, stay calm in arguments, face unforeseen events with calm. Over time, these small gestures become a part of who you are and shape your life according to the principles of virtue. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that true freedom lies not in controlling what happens in the world around us, but in how our minds respond to it. True transformation occurs when we change our perspective on external situations. Try applying these principles over the next few days. When something happens, pause for a moment and use the time between what happens and your reaction to choose wisely how you will respond. If you want to learn more about Stoicism and how to apply these principles in your life, subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new videos. Lesson 3. Constantly check your settings. Marcus Aurelius invites us to look within ourselves with pure honesty, without masks or illusions. He asks us to be true to ourselves, to clearly recognize our strengths and weaknesses without judging or belittling ourselves. This way we can better understand who we really are, what we are capable of, and where we need to improve. This understanding is essential if we are to act wisely. Without this clear vision, we risk making hasty decisions based on illusions or momentary desires that do not move us forward, but move us further away from what we really want. What seems like a quick fix can actually become another source of frustration and suffering. For example, imagine you decide to start a new exercise program with great enthusiasm because you think you're finally on the path to improving your health. You imagine the energy you will gain, the muscles you will build, and the feeling of well-being. However, without proper planning, without adjusting your goals to your pace, and without considering the challenges that will arise along the way, that enthusiasm can quickly turn into frustration. What should be a path to wellness can, over time, become an overload, a burden that is difficult to bear. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that self-knowledge is the key to avoiding this mistake. He advises us not to run away from challenges, but to look within ourselves. It makes us think about important questions. Do I really have what it takes? Am I prepared for what lies ahead? This look inward should not limit us, but rather guide us wisely. When we know who we are, what's good about us, and what we need to improve on, we make better decisions. Instead of frustrating us, this self-awareness directs us toward growth and helps us achieve our goals with greater wisdom and balance. Now imagine a person who spends money indiscriminately, buying things on impulse and believing that the money will never run out. Or someone who decides to invest in something without understanding the risks just because they heard it is an easy way to make money quickly. When debts pile up or the investment doesn't produce the expected return, reality hits hard and regret is inevitable. What seemed like a quick path to success becomes a burden that is difficult to bear. This situation could have been avoided if the person in question had made an honest analysis of their financial reality before acting. Self-knowledge would be the key in this case to avoid making hasty decisions. Recognizing our limitations is not a sign of weakness but of strength. When we know what we are capable of and where we need to improve, we gain the confidence to act more consciously. Working on our weaknesses makes us stronger, and true wisdom lies in balancing the will to act with the necessary preparation for the challenges ahead. Marcus Aurelius provokes us with a powerful and profound question. Do you have what it takes to face this? This question is not intended to discourage us, but to show us the importance of understanding our preparation before we act. If the answer is yes, then we should move forward boldly, knowing that we are ready. However, if the answer is no, it should be a call to prepare ourselves better. Self-awareness works like making sure our tank is full before setting off on a long journey. If we know this, we will not run the risk of running out of energy and options halfway through and being forced to stop. This knowledge of ourselves prepares us for the ups and downs of life, for the surprises that may arise, and for the unexpected obstacles. Without this solid foundation, we are more likely to fail. But with this foundation, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that we are ready for any challenge. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that true success lies not only in starting something, but also in having the wisdom and persistence to achieve the goal with poise, composure, and confidence in our own preparation. And if you like the content, consider becoming a member of the channel. Not only do you support the channel, but you also receive exclusive content. Click on the link in the description and become a member now. Back to content. Lesson 4. The Art of Moderation. Imagine yourself at a grand banquet where a huge table is laid with delicious food full of irresistible colors and scents. The smell of it all fills the air, and the temptation to take more than you can eat is strong. Temptation is omnipresent, but true wisdom, according to Marcus Aurelius, lies in serving in moderation, respecting your limits, and enjoying each dish without overdoing it. Instead of giving in to the temptation to overeat, choose to enjoy the good things, but in a balanced way. This simple metaphor of a feast is actually a profound lesson about moderation, one of the central virtues of Stoicism. Temperance is not about avoiding pleasure or living a life without fun, as if it were a punishment. On the contrary, it's about understanding how to enjoy what life has to offer without losing control. Instead of denying desires, Marcus Aurelius teaches us that we must recognize them, but also know how to curb them. When you decide not to eat more than you need at a feast, you are not saying no to food, but choosing to act consciously without getting lost in excess. In this way, moderation allows us to live a more fulfilling life in which we can enjoy pleasures without them dominating or harming us. If someone repeatedly gives in to an impulse, whether it's spending too much money or eating without thinking, they will soon regret it and feel like their decisions have overwhelmed them. Marcus Aurelius shows us that true freedom lies precisely in curbing these impulses and using reason to make wiser and more balanced decisions. For example, think about this when you decide to buy something expensive or go to a luxurious restaurant. The urge to give in to immediate pleasure is strong, but practicing moderation will help you make decisions that aren't just temporary. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that we can fulfill our desires, but always in a way that does not harm us in the future. If you don't spend all your money at once, but save some for other purposes, e.g., for example, to save for something important or pay off a debt, the simple act of moderation in spending becomes a tool that benefits you rather than a source of regret. However, moderation applies not only to money or food, but to all areas of life. It is present in work, in relationships, and even in our feelings. It's not about giving up pleasure or ignoring what we need, but about living with a consciousness that allows us to choose wisely. True virtue is the ability to balance our needs and desires without letting either dominate us. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that when we curb our desires, we gain something much more valuable: freedom. This means that we don't let impulses or fears guide us, but rather make decisions that reflect who we really are and what we value most. Moderation helps us live more clearly between the desire to enjoy life and the need to maintain balance. It is the difference between living in the moment and getting lost in it, between enjoying life and devouring it. In a world where excess is often the norm, whether through consumption, information, urgency, or distraction, practicing moderation can seem like an act of rebellion. In fact, it is in this search for balance that we find true peace. If we know how to say no when we need to and say yes when we want to, it helps us to stand firm. Consider your own life. Where do you feel like you need more balance? Maybe in terms of the time you spend on social media, the way you approach food, or the way you manage your time. True strength lies not in avoiding certain things, but in the ability to control them and decide when to act. In the feast of life, it is moderation that allows us to take just enough, enjoy every portion, and go home satisfied. Not because we are limiting ourselves, but because we are living fully and consciously. And before we move on to the next lesson, we ask you to like, comment, and share this video with someone you know who needs to hear this message. Lesson 5. Give up desire and achieve happiness. True happiness does not lie in seeking something we do not yet have, nor in constantly wanting more than we already have. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that happiness comes from the quality of our thoughts, not from external things. He reminds us that happiness does not depend on what we seek outside of ourselves, but on how we deal with what we already have within and around us. Imagine that happiness is like a well-prepared and satisfying meal. When you are truly full, you no longer feel hungry, you don't miss anything. Likewise, you feel complete when you are content with what you already have, without needing anything else to be happy. Think for a moment. How many times have you thought, I will be happy when I get that job, when I have more money, when I lose weight, or when I have a relationship? This thought is very common, and we often hope for future happiness. The problem, however, is that with this thinking, we are stuck in a future that never arrives. It makes us chase something that always seems one step ahead of us and never within reach. And while we wait for the happiness we think will come, we miss the opportunity to live and enjoy the present moment. Happiness does not lie in the distant future, but in what you have now. The constant desire for more and more is the greatest enemy of peace and serenity. When we put our happiness into things we don't yet have, we give up control of our lives to something we can't control, and the result is always frustration, fear, and an emptiness that never seems to be filled. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that true happiness comes from our reaction to what happens to us. In other words, it depends not on what we lack, but on how we live and enjoy what we already have. Take a break, take a deep breath, and look around. What do you already have? Do you already have your health, which we often forget to be grateful for? Do you already have the company of the people you love? Have you achieved small victories in your daily life? Happiness lies not only in the future, but in the now. When you begin to appreciate what you already have, you realize that it is enough. This does not mean that you have to give up your dreams and desires, but rather that you learn to fulfill yourself in the present, knowing that the future will come when the time is right. Marcus Aurelius teaches us to be grateful for everything we already have, because true happiness lies within ourselves and not in something that is yet to come. The problem with "I will be happy when" is that it sets us on a never-ending search for something that never comes. This constant desire not to stop and appreciate what we have only creates emptiness. True happiness comes from gratitude, from recognizing and giving thanks for what we already have. Happiness is not at the finish line, it is not somewhere far away. It's already here now. It is found in the way we see life, in what we value today. As Marcus Aurelius says, live with what you have and love what you do. You don't have to wait to be happy. Happiness lies in the way you live in the present and in who you are today. True freedom comes when we stop looking for happiness outside of ourselves and start finding it within ourselves. You already have enough. You just have to stop and realize it. But there is something important to realize. If you've been trying to get out of your comfort zone and learn more for a long time but still haven't succeeded, there may be something you don't recognize. I know what it could be. It's fear. Fears are like a snake that eats its way into you unnoticed. It makes you sick for days, months, and even years. Living like this is like being sick all the time. But I know a solution. The Stoic philosophers and modern psychology have found a way to get rid of them. I managed to heal myself from this fear. I made a video explaining how you can get rid of this evil, and it can be seen in the first comment. Click the link in the first comment and start healing yourself from that feeling of fear. Sixth lesson, the virtue of learning with humility. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that the first step to true learning is recognizing how much we don't yet know. He said, "Those who live as if they know everything will never learn anything." This phrase is a call to humility, a reminder that if we want to grow, we must open ourselves to the fact that there is always more to learn. When we believe we already know everything, we close ourselves off from learning and growth. This is dangerous because development depends on our ability to ask questions, explore and discover new ideas. No matter how many achievements we have or how much we already know, there is still something to learn. Arrogance blinds us to the growth opportunities that are all around us. As a manager, Marcus Aurelius constantly had to deal with this resistance to learning. Many people approached him thinking they already knew enough, but in reality, they were just repeating the same old patterns without thinking deeply about them. This behavior is something we have all experienced at some point in our lives. It can happen at work, in conversations with friends, or even in everyday situations. It's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "I already know that." Think about the last movie you saw or the last book you read. Have you really thought about what you could learn from it? Or did you just have these experiences automatically, without questioning what they could add to your life? Marcus Aurelius warns us, there is nothing madder than living without questioning, without trying to understand the world around us in a deeper way. Sometimes the lessons are right in front of us, but our distraction or our pride in knowing everything prevents us from seeing them. The biggest problem with assuming we already know everything is that it prevents us from making progress. When we believe there is nothing left to learn, we stop asking questions, seeking answers, and listening carefully. This leaves us trapped in a limited view of the world and stagnating in our own ignorance. Marcus Aurelius does not ask us to humiliate ourselves, but rather teaches us that the humility to learn is a great strength. In order to learn, we must have the courage to admit that there is still something to explore. When we accept this truth, we create space for real growth. Every day, every moment, and every person around us can teach us something if we are willing to recognize these lessons. A conversation with a friend, a mistake at work, even a difficult day. Everything offers a learning opportunity if we pay attention. The question is, do you pay attention to these lessons, or do you just move on without thinking about them? If we close ourselves off from learning, we won't progress. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that true wisdom begins with the realization that we know nothing. Ignorance does not lie in the fact that we do not know something, but in the fact that we believe we already know everything. When we let go of this arrogant certainty, we begin to see the world differently, more openly and receptively. In this way, we open the space to learn with humility and grow in an authentic way. Remember that learning has no end, but is a continuous process characterized by curiosity, openness, and courage. The more you allow yourself to be a student of life, the stronger and wiser you will become. and that only happens when we recognize that there is still something to learn. Seventh lesson. Go through life with firm principles. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that living with purpose means building our lives on solid, clear principles that truly guide us in our decisions and actions. He reminds us that the soul is ashamed of its virtue when it violates its own laws, and shows us that our principles are not just abstract ideas or vague promises, but the foundation that sustains our lives. They are the ones who guide us, especially in difficult times when emotions want to take control. Without these principles, our lives are like a boat drifting on the unpredictable waves of circumstances. In calm moments, we may even feel like we are sailing in a straight line, but when the storm comes, only the firmness of our principles keeps us going without losing our bearings. Defining these principles requires more than just thinking about what we would like to be. It requires courage and honesty. We start with a simple but profound question: what is really important to me? Maybe it's honesty, compassion, justice, or gratitude. Identifying these values is the beginning, but the real challenge comes afterwards, translating these principles into real actions that must be reflected in our daily behavior. For example, if you value honesty, this should be reflected in your decisions, especially in the most difficult situations. Imagine that you make a mistake at work. You have the option to hide the error to avoid a possible reprimand. The easiest option would be to remain silent, but if honesty is a principle for you, the right decision would be to admit the mistake, even if you know it might cause discomfort. By doing this, you not only maintain your integrity, but also strengthen the trust that others place in you, and more importantly, you will strengthen the confidence you have in yourself. Now think about compassion. It's easy to say that you value respect for others, but living it is much more difficult. Imagine someone treating you badly for no apparent reason. Your first reaction might be to walk away or respond with indifference, but if compassion is a principle you truly follow, you will choose to take a step back. They will try to understand what is behind the person's behavior and act with patience and understanding. This decision is difficult, but it is exactly the kind of person you want to be. Principles are not about what you say, but about how you behave when challenged. They have to be more than pretty words. They must become concrete actions, especially if they are difficult to adhere to. It is in these difficult moments that our values become a solid foundation that keeps us on the right path. Marcus Aurelius also reminds us of something essential. One should not act differently than one thinks is right. Betraying your principles is actually a betrayal of yourself. When we do this, we not only disappoint others, but also lose confidence in ourselves. Imagine that you have decided to make your health a priority. Now imagine a difficult day in which you are tempted to eat something unhealthy, skip a workout, or not get enough sleep. In such situations, your principles will be tested. It's easy to follow what you think is important when everything is calm, but in the turbulence of life, we reveal who we really are. Principles help us not to make impulsive decisions, to align our actions with our values, and to be consistent even when the path is uncertain. If we don't know what principles guide us, or if those principles aren't clearly defined, how can we take them into account in our actions? Marcus Aurelius urges us to view our principles as something sacred, because if we truly respect them, they shape our lives and show us the best path. Living in harmony with reason and nature is only possible if we not only respect our principles, but also practice them every day. Finally, remember, true strength of character lies not in doing the easy thing, but in doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. And if this content, as simple as it may seem, touched something inside you, don't forget to comment. My mind has changed. I want to know how this new perspective has impacted your life. Eighth lesson: affirm who you want to become. Marcus Aurelius's lesson asks us to think deeply about who we really want to be. He teaches us that the first step to living a purposeful life is defining who you want to be and then acting accordingly. He said, first tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, then do what you have to do. We cannot expect life to lead us to a goal without knowing exactly what that goal is. When we don't have clarity about what we want for our lives, we get lost in the daily distractions and let others or circumstances decide for us. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that true change begins when we clearly commit to who we want to be, regardless of what others expect or what seems easiest. True change comes when we are honest with ourselves about the deepest desires within us. These wishes and values guide our daily actions. What drives us to keep going even in the most difficult times? Have you ever thought about what legacy you want to leave behind? Maybe you want to be admired for your courage, integrity, perseverance, or some other important value. But these answers cannot be given in words alone. They must come from your daily actions. As Marcus Aurelius said, wanting something is not enough. He says, happiness depends on yourself. There is no point in trying to be disciplined if you don't have the courage to act. If you really value commitment, you have to get up early, even if your body begs for a few more minutes of rest. If you want to live courageously, you must face your daily fears, whether at work by taking on a difficult challenge or in your personal life by having that conversation you've been avoiding. The most important thing is not the words you say, but the actions you do again and again that show how far you are willing to go beyond your limits. Take health, for example. There's no point in dreaming about a healthier life if you're sabotaging yourself at every turn. Imagine you have decided to change your diet and exercise, but the sofa and the temptation to give up are always there, ready to derail you. True transformation happens when you choose the pain of growth, even when you know the momentary pleasure of laziness can be tempting. Marcus Aurelius also teaches us that time is a river that carries me along, but I am the boat. If you don't take control of your life, time and the wrong habits will do it for you. Real change happens when we commit to being consistent, especially when no one is looking. Imagine the moment when you easily make the easy choice. Lie to avoid a problem or apologize for not doing what is necessary. But when you choose to do the right thing, not because anyone is watching, but because your soul demands it, then you begin to understand the true strength of character. A person's character is, in fact, what he does when no one is watching. When you choose to live a purposeful life, you realize with every decision that you are creating your own story. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that what you don't want, you shouldn't do to others. If you want to be more present, more committed, and more resilient, it won't show up in empty words, but in your daily actions. Every little gesture, every attitude you take with intention is a reflection of the person you want to become. So think about it. Who do you really want to be? Define that clearly and act on it with everything you have. Don't wait for a perfect opportunity will never come. As Marcus Aurelius taught us, there is no pause button in life. Change happens now in every daily decision, in the small successes that, taken together, make up the person you want to be. Happiness is not in the distant future, but depends on you. If you've made it this far, reflect on your journey and share your thoughts in the comments or write "The Wise Stoic" on the screen. There is a valuable lesson waiting for you. Click on them and let's grow together.